Well, you've talked about the need to live dangerously in order to innovate, and just the way you want to live as well. I mean, what did you mean by that, and how have you lived dangerously?
Well, most recently, I picked up a sport called wing foiling. So it's like windsurfing, but you're holding a wing and you're on the hydrofoil. And because of that sport, I'm able to get far out to sea and I've been able to encounter a lot of sea turtles. So for me, like, it's the most extreme sport I've ever done, one of the hardest sports I've ever learned. But it's been very gratifying because it's been a physical challenge, it's been outdoors in nature, and it's been enabling me to see my coastal environment and wildlife in ways that I haven't before. And it's got me thinking about, okay, these kinds of extreme sports, like how can we make some of this more accessible to people? And how can we encourage people to value the environment through different activities? So aside from wing foiling, I've also been doing baby scuba diving, which is using mini scuba air tanks and diving just 5-10 meters, but in coral gardens that are in the neighborhood. And they're really in good condition. But then there's also so many corals around here being damaged by bad tourism where anchors are being dropped directly on the reef. So by experimenting with these new kinds of sports and activities, it's brought me to places that have gotten me very excited and having a lot of fun. But then also thinking about how can this be made accessible? How can this be incorporated into our ecotourism services? And how can this revenue generation serve the community? How can we come up with novel ideas that will attract visitors that have an interest in sustainability, and supporting regenerative tourism is kind of the new buzzword that we're working on. So how can we take our services and instead of what the status quo is doing, which is damaging tourism, over tourism, how can we
Excuse me,
spin
Brian.
that
What
around?
was the buzzword you mentioned?
Regenerative tourism.
Oh, regenerative tourism. I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like
So what do you mean by
ecotourism
that?
becomes regenerative, meaning part of the proceeds of our services will go into supporting the solid waste management because there's a trash problem, right? There's plastic on the beaches. So if part of our services also include doing beach cleanups and facilitating garbage disposal, so we worked to set up a nonprofit called the Luyahan Preservation Association since the pandemic. And what we've been able to achieve there are regular beach cleanups, beach marshal service that constantly does cleanups. And this is run by the local communities. And then we've established solid waste management, so dump truck hauling. Before, everyone was just burning and burying their trash in our neighborhood. So this is the profit side, but with our Bambike Eco Tours, once we start operating later this year, we will be already incorporating composting and more advanced materials recovery and upcycling into our business practices. And so that's the way in which, by operating our services, we will be able to afford the manpower needed to do these things, which otherwise would previously be considered costs, right? But for us, since we incorporate them as normal operational expenses, that turns this tourism model into something that can help improve soil quality, clean up the plastic from the beaches, teach people about these things, and incentivize locals to participate in tourism. That, so for example, out front on the reef, instead of just dropping anchor directly on the reef, we've installed mooring buoys. The problem is the local tourism community that isn't used to doing that, and there aren't enough mooring buoys yet. So he just submitted a UN grant application for the ASEAN Blue Innovation Challenge to deploy more buoys and to run workshops to teach the stakeholders, which are the local boatmen and the local tour guides, how to slowly not stop what they're doing, but do it in a way that's not destructive. There's many, many things around here. It's like, as I said, it feels like we're just getting started. It's because we've entered a new community when there's a whole host of different challenges. And for me, my background is in, environmental resource management. So I come into this environment and this community thinking about the interconnectedness of all of the different operations and the people here. And yeah, I guess these are the things that kind of I see as long-term kind of legacy projects that we can fund it through sustainable operations of our business and create more jobs that revolve around this. Then that could create sustainable change within the community to encourage the tourism operators to start doing things a little different. And then hopefully over time, proving that that becomes more profitable doing the right thing than scraping by doing the wrong thing.